Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Alan Rough, Barry Ferguson and Alison McConnell are here with me, ready to react to most of your points on Facebook and YouTube that you want to put to us. It's been an interesting weekend. There's been quite a bit happening, and we'll get your thoughts on it as well as give you our opinion too. So without any further ado, here's the quiz. So there's your quiz. Lots of people coming on board. Lachlan Gold on right away. Stephen Clark, David McDivitt. So many people just tuned in. Chris Thompson, Stephen Fee, Una Brennan. So hi to some of the people joining us on Facebook right away. I'll give a mention to the people on YouTube as well. It's been a fairly eventful weekend. There's lots to discuss along the way. Of course, it's fair to say that war has broken out among the clubs across the SPFL. It is not healthy, and this is ahead of course, the vote tomorrow for an independent investigation. This EGM will take place at the behest of Rangers, Hearts and Stranraer. Will they get 75% of the votes needed to get this independent investigation? Well, that is open to debate as well. So first and foremost, a couple of things that have come out quickly. Aberdeen have released a statement saying that they will indeed back the vote. We reiterate our belief that an independent inquiry is the only way of drawing a line under what has become a highly damaging episode for the whole of Scottish football. There is a distressing lack of confidence and trust between the SPFL leadership and many of the clubs, and it's hard to see a resolution without some form of impartial and objective assessment of the many claims made and counterclaims. Some of those involved will be prepared to make information known in confidence, though through an independent inquiry, which they would not otherwise be willing to disclose. The SPFL will be able to provide details of the contractual consequences for the SPFL of different possible outcomes, which they have felt unable to share with members. So that's Aberdeen first and foremost. What's your reaction to that, Alison McConnell?
It's interesting, isn't it? In a weekend of statements again, I think the one word that we're seeing as a great perennial here is trust. We've seen it time and time again over the past 3 or 4 weeks, ever since the April vote took place. And I think whatever way you look at it, there is clearly an undermining of the trust and confidence that the member clubs have in the SPFL. Now, whether or not that is enough for sufficient numbers to vote tomorrow in favour of an independent investigation, I'm not sure. My original thoughts on Friday would be no, that clubs generally wanted to move on and try and address the current climate that we find ourselves in. Now I'm not so sure. I think in the light of what's happened over the weekend, I'm not so sure how it might go tomorrow. I think they need 75% to take it to an independent investigation. And it'll be interesting to see what the numbers are. I think it might be far closer than many of us would originally have anticipated on Friday.
Okay, Partick Thistle have released a statement, and here's the gist of it as well. I'll read it out, and then Roughie can give us his thoughts on this. At a critically important time for Scottish football, the club wants to share with you its voting intention ahead of the SPFL EGM and briefly explain the reasoning behind the decision. The votes for an independent investigation isn't a case of picking sides. It's a way for Scottish clubs to try and find a way out of the situation it's found itself in. Unless something is done urgently to deal with the breakdown in trust, football in this country may never fully recover. That's why we will vote yes to an independent investigation. To do nothing risks leaving our game fatally wounded. For the avoidance of doubt, this decision was taken last week before events unfolded around reconstruction. We will indeed talk about reconstruction shortly, but also off the back of that, Roughie, Partick Thistle haven't ruled out, according to Jerry Britton, taking legal action.
He's the right person if we were going to go down that road. I think he will look into it very, very carefully. Obviously, we keep hearing that it costs a lot of money. But there seems to be a lot of... We'll have to wait and see how the vote goes first, because we have to decide whether the teams that are really annoyed about this accept it, or whether they go down another road. And is there enough of them to go down another road? We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It's a difficult one, you know. Again, I think this is another vote that's going nowhere. I think the SPFL, the top league, will scupper it right at the start. I think there will be 4 teams will not want anything to do with it, and unfortunately, some of these teams have got people on the SPFL board. So I think there'll be 4 teams will do this in right for the start before all the other, just like the other vote, it'll get kiboshed before we get any further.
Well, that's an interesting point that we will discuss very shortly. Over the weekend as well, there are other press statements that I feel it's only right and proper that we mention to you.
Peter, can I just say something for everybody that's not listened before? When you start shouting at me and Barry, it means we've legaled the company.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm about to get to Barry. I'm about to get to Barry in a minute. But there's no point in me, and what I'm going to do today, and I've taken a different stance on it. There is no point in me continually addressing some of the morons who post abusive stuff on here. You know, over the weekend, I think lots of people across Scottish football get it. We're just going to have to focus on the positive, intelligent people today, because I don't want to get bogged down with it. I've already had quite a few people reacting to a column that I'd written over the last 24 hours, which obviously some people can't read it clearly and grasp the whole context of it. So we'll discuss lots of this stuff, get Barry's thoughts in a moment. But one of the other things that came out was Inverness, Cally Thistle were quite scathing at the weekend, and their condemnation of one chairman who's part of the SPFL board in particular. Now, Inverness, Cally Thistle say they will now testify to bullying if indeed this vote gets the go-ahead. So that's a change of stance. That prompted a statement from Dunfermline today, and that statement is as follows. Since the SPFL Directors' Resolution was first issued, a number of clubs in the Championship would confirm the behaviour of Inverness that has been aggressive and confrontational. I hope I've read that right. A number of clubs in the Championship would confirm it's the behaviour of Inverness that has been aggressive and confrontational. I just couldn't see the graphic there, folks. However, no one felt it necessary to win points in public, as robust conversations take place in the normal course of competitive business like football. Turning to the allegation regarding the information that was conveyed by me to Inverness on Friday 10th of April 2020, as confirmed by their own leaked WhatsApp message group, I clearly did so as Dunfermline Athletic chairman and not as an SPFL board member, says Ross MacArthur, as was expressly agreed and verified before the call with other championship clubs. It most certainly wasn't a threat, simply a potential consequence of their action not to back the SPFL resolution currently put in front of them in favour of a counter-resolution which was being mooted at the time. So, Barry, suddenly there's a war of words breaking out between clubs in the Championship as well over this whole vote, over what happened. Neil Doncaster has come out and made, again, stuck by his statement that says that Douglas Park, the Rangers chairman, made a defamatory allegation and threat, and he's sticking by that. And that's where we're at. We've had a weekend where everybody is just ladling their boot into each other.
Yep, Peter, and I honestly believe the only way we're going to be able to move forward or draw a line under this is to have an independent investigation. I think that's the only way, Peter. And for the game to move forward, there needs to be confidence in those who are running our game. And right now, there is zero confidence in these people in the SPFL. So the only way you're going to get round this is to go ahead and have an independent investigation. And then when that comes out, then everybody can have their say. Somebody's going to be wrong and somebody's going to be right. Then we can move on and try and move forward and get our game back to a healthy sort of state. But listen, I listened to Neil Doncaster's interviews over the weekend, and to be quite honest with you, he kind of jumped round about some of the questions. He never gave a definite answer for me. So the more you see it, Peter, you see more clubs now over the last 24, 48 hours come out and release statements, because it just shows they have no confidence whatsoever what's going on at the head of our game.
Yeah, I have to pick up on one point that you made there, Barry, just on the basis that it's open to, it's subjective, which is quite simply that there's a zero confidence in the chief executive or the board. I don't think we have an exact figure on how many are unhappy with Neil Doncaster and the board at this moment. That will become apparent as we move on to get the vote on this investigation into Neil Doncaster and Rod Mackenzie, which has been made by at the request of Rangers, Hearts and Stranraer. So it's an interesting one, because Neil Doncaster stands by what he said and tries to direct so many people towards page 13 of the Rangers dossier, which backs up his statement on the allegation of something defamatory and a threat. We only have to wait 24 hours till we get an overall vote on this. I agree with you, Roughie. I think it will be scuppered. That's my personal view. I think the vote will not get the go-ahead. I know Alison is, slightly wavering on it, which is her right, but I think there's enough clubs that will scupper it. I don't think that's a good thing. I think we should have it. I've stated over the last 24 hours, Roughie, strongly that I think we should have an investigation, because now we're in a situation where this will fester and it will not be a wound that will heal. And I've been quite scathing on it. I said on Friday, Roughie, I think the need is to build bridges with Rangers, but this one is going to drive everybody apart if we don't get the investigation.
Yeah, it certainly is. You've already stated a case there with Dunfermline and Inverness. That will fester, no doubt. It's unfortunate for me. I think it's unfortunate. I know the resolutions and all that are set in stone. I don't know where this 75% comes from. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. If you go to a vote, usually in any kind of vote, if it's over 50%, you have a majority. And I think if 50 or 60% people vote, I think that's good enough to take it further. I know the SPFL will say, you never got 75%. 75% for me is a false number. If there's enough members are over 50% in this, it should be taken further, not 75%. 75% is too easy to get out of.
Listen, I now hope that it gets the required 75%. Absolutely, because this will never end. If it's not conspiracy theories, it's people fighting with each other, accusations, threats, call it what you will. It's unhealthy for the game. The other thing that I thought was, and again, I think sometimes it gets lost, especially when fans feel so passionate about it, and the answer is on the YouTube and the Facebook all over the weekend. I think some people have got selective hearing, Alison, so I'll emphasise this. The one consistent that we've had from Barry, yourself, Roughie, myself, and all the other pundits is that we've been critical of the SPFL, and we've been assessing the rights and wrongs of each daily breaking news as it comes, and there's no agenda on this. I think the SPFL needs to have a look at the way it's conducted himself, and some of the Premiership clubs as well, and the evidence of that, Ali, only has to be looked back on Friday and what happened. The task force with Anne Budge and Les Gray and the other members didn't even get the ideas on the steps of Hampden before that was kicked out by the Premiership clubs. Now, I thought that was a disgrace.
I have to say, it did not take me by surprise at all. I thought it was inevitable that would happen. And I don't know where it leaves us. I think we've become bogged down in all this parochialism, really. I think, like you, I would welcome an independent investigation now into what has gone on, because I think where we are, it's almost impossible to build bridges and come back from it. But even then, even with an independent investigation, I think that the civil war that's taken place here in the last month will be very, very, very difficult to move away from, regardless of what an independent investigation or whatever else might show. I think what you have seen is almost a kind of an open warfare. You've seen the war of words that's been going on between clubs. I just don't know how you move away from that and try and address the greater good and lead people out of the biggest crisis that the game has known. When you're bogged down in all this, it's almost, there's so much petty nonsense going on round about it.
Well, I think you're 100% correct. And Barry, the decision to actually kick it out beggars belief. Especially, I mean, all the infighting that's going on is something that we have to digest and discuss. But to kick out the chance to save all the clubs and to come up with the usual claptrap about now is not the time to have reconstruction. Now is the perfect time to have reconstruction. Now is the perfect time to offer an olive branch to everyone and save some of the clubs who are in financial distress. This is the perfect time to expand the leagues and give people the pyramid system that they bought into, and give other people that you are relegating unfairly the chance to actually remain where they are and be given financial help along the way. I think it's a disgrace they kicked it out.
Yeah, Peter, I've got to agree with you 100%. I think it's a disgrace. When you broke the news on Friday at 5 o'clock, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Is this not a time when this virus is happening, a time for everybody to get together and try and help each other, help Scottish football, not relegate these clubs? For me, Hearts, Partick Thistle, Stranraer, they shouldn't be relegated, if I'm being honest. So for me, it's a time and a place to try and get reconstruction together. And for it not to even get on the table, as you says, and get up the steps at Hampden's an absolute disgrace to me. I know how we feel. We've been talking over the phone at the weekend, and certainly we're going to go down a certain route that we don't think it's fair that we've not been given the opportunity. Not to get promoted, Peter, but not been given the chance to play in a playoff game at least. So if the season does get back up and running, when football does, we want to be able to have that chance to play a playoff game and then play Brecon City, who are bottom of the league. But whether that will happen, I very much doubt it, Peter.
And the other thing is as well, Peter, they've got an absolutely cheek. He's got a cheek to say, yeah, the Scottish Cup semi-final will be a great eye-opener or a beginning to the new season. Why can't, if they can do that, why can they not do what Barry's just said there? It's 3 games. You know, it's just beggars belief some of this coming out with.
Roughie, can I come in there, Peter? What Roughie's just said there, we have put that to the SPFL board. We have written to them and asked them for that. If they're going to continue and play with a Scottish Cup, getting into the start of next season, why can they not continue to play in a playoff game between us and Brora? And then we can then play Brecon City, who are obviously finished the 42nd team in the SPFL. So we feel we should be given that opportunity. If it wasn't going to happen, getting promoted directly, we should still be given that opportunity to play in a game with a chance to getting in.
Just out of curiosity, Barry, and forgive me for this, I missed the last 4 or 5 seconds of what you were saying previously, and as you know, if you miss 4 or 5 seconds in Scottish football, you could miss the entire plot. But I need to ask you again, when you were writing to the SPFL with regards to the fact of being allowed to partake in a playoff whenever that time is allowed, and then obviously to play Brecon City, in that letter, are you contemplating legal action on this?
Yeah, but, well, that decision will come down to the general manager and the board, but the way that we're talking, we are, at this moment in time, taking legal advice. So I would imagine so, Peter, if we're denied that opportunity of a playoff game, because we're denied the opportunity through reconstruction. They says on Friday it's off the table. And then, on the other hand, I listened to Neil Doncaster talk on another media platform yesterday and then say that reconstruction isn't off the table. So we don't know what's happening, Peter. This is the thing, we're getting mixed messages, left, right and centre here. So either reconstruction is off the table or reconstruction is back on the table. What one is it? We don't know. Because as I said, we keep getting mixed messages for people at the top of Scottish football, which I don't think's don't think's right.
Yeah, I think we're now going into a situation, Roughie, where unless you keep a detailed plan of everything that's being said on a daily basis, sometimes, and I use this carefully, sometimes the narrative can be changed and slightly skewed as you move on, and that is especially so when you start to read comments and people rewriting history as we go from week to week, from day to day, especially on this programme. The one element of it that I think needs to be addressed, Roughie, is that independent investigation, if only to get to a situation where Neil Doncaster and Rod McKenzie can either obviously pay the penalty of impropriety if it is proved. And certainly we offered our opinion last week that we did not see that in the dossier. But if it is then proved to be so, then they obviously would have to step down. But if not, then their character is intact. They've been proved to be, at this point, innocent of all the charges. And then from there, it's down to whether they want to take legal action against Rangers for the allegations in the first place. But that's a separate matter. But I do think there's a need to clear this whole issue up, for the benefit of those two as well.
Yeah, but I don't think we'll get any of that, Peter, unless we do have an inquiry. As I've already spoke about in the last 15 minutes, there's too many people are saying, he said that, no, I didn't say that, he said that, no, I didn't say that. There's too many of that going on. And there's too many things now reappearing that we were never talking about a week ago that we didn't know about. Obviously, people have been phoned and asked for advice and certain things. These things all need to come out. The biggest thing for me, Peter, and where it all started was the Dundee vote. The Dundee vote for me is when this has all started. And John Nelms has obviously went utterly quiet at this particular moment. He needs to come forward and tell us who phoned him and said that league reconstruction, if you vote yes, league reconstruction will be top agenda, and then he voted yes. And this is where all this has come from.
Well, again, and again, I'll counter you on this, Roughie, only due to the fact that I've got to be unbelievably careful in rewriting history here or making, suggestions that we can't firm up. John Nelm's silence certainly doesn't help matters, but at no stage could I confirm 100% that he was told. He certainly wanted to get assurances, Alison, that people would discuss reconstruction. But in my column that I've written in the last 24 hours, I have suggested, I'm sorry, John Nelms, you're wet behind the ears if you think anybody, if there was a call or a suggestion that you were going to get league reconstruction, I know what they're like. They are super, super wide when it comes to these promises or anything that might be on the table. You've got to be absolutely locked tight with people and getting confirmation of a reconstruction. And there's no way anybody would give him that in the SPFL if he was indeed talking to anyone. There's no way they could give him that assurance. He's wet behind the ears if he thought he was going to get it from anybody in the Premiership.
Whether it was naivety or not, or whether there was something else at play, we don't know. I read a piece with him in the Courier last week that I thought created more questions and answers again. But I would agree with Alan that I think so much of what we're going through just now all comes down to the change in Dundee's vote. it's been the catalyst for the unravelling that we've seen over the last 4 weeks. But I agree. I think there has been an element of naivety, but I think there's potentially something else there too. And I'm not sure we'll ever find out what that is, whether there's an independent investigation or not. I don't think you'll ever know for sure what went on and what was the reason behind it.
Well, David Cartwright, who's on Facebook, has said, Roughie, why possibly would John Nelms feel the need to tell any of you why he made his decision?
Well, I think, Peter, he actually did come out and say, that the reconstruction was something that he thought he could push through or had evidence of pushing it through if his vote was a yes. And then he come up with, we should be giving the clubs that are relegated compensation, and we'll have some big glamour games to tidy them over. Stuff like that, is that off the top of his head, or is that somebody again allegedly, having a word with him? This is just my opinion. I just feel that when he came out with his statement of why he went from yes and taking away the no, he has obviously been spoken to. This is just my opinion. He's been spoken to somebody, and somebody has reassured him that he holds the vote that could change everything. And I think he, as Alison says, maybe naive to think that he was the one that was going to change everything by going on a yes vote. And obviously he's been let down extremely badly. And all I'm saying, it'd be interesting to know what his feelings are, and if he would share that with us. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the reason why I'm smiling, Roughie, is because again, you've got to sift through the crap. And the crap is, anybody who suggests for a minute, they said to the Dundee man, we'll give you some big friendlies at the start of the season. You've just got to ditch that. That's a lot of nonsense. Anyone who actually said to him, I do believe John Nelms, Barry, once he realised he had some kind of deciding vote and he had a bit of power, he thought he was the kingpin then, and he started to get to a situation where he thought he was some kind of crusader for the light, the way, and the truth of saving everybody in Scottish football by getting an assurance of reconstruction. If someone told me it was daylight in the SPFL Premiership, I'd go out and check. I certainly wouldn't take their word for it. Not a chance.
No, listen, I think you sum it up pretty well there. He's obviously, the word reconstruction has been a big factor in his decision, Peter. And he's looking at that way. He's probably looking at the championship that he's in, and if a Hearts get relegated, his chances of getting promoted into the Premier League the following season is going to be really difficult. So I think reconstruction was a big part for Dundee's decision. And obviously, what was it, 10, 14 days, we're into this reconstruction group, and it's just thrown right out the window, and right, it's forgot about, we'll take this back up in a year's time. It's a shambles, an absolute shambles.
Yeah, and I hate to go too far back, Ali, but of course, listen, you only have to look at the club who had the chance when Rangers were not in the Premiership to change the voting structure in the Premier League from 11-1. They had the chance, but they took the scraps off the table again and decided against changing that vote, or this whole thing would take an unbelievably different direction. And all of it is stinking of greed. And there's not a collective, there's not a charitable notion among clubs who are clearly interested in self-preservation and looking and thinking, let's try and save the Hearts, the Partick Thistle and the Stranraer. And I make no bones about it now. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got it in the net saying we have to save clubs like Hearts. We even have to save clubs like Partick Thistle. But along the way, there's no chance because half of them are too bloody greedy.
The 11-1 vote.
Peter,
when you go.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Peter, this resolution, this vote, this 11-1 vote, is it in stone? How do you change that? Or is there an avenue to change it? Or how do you change it? Or is that it? You just have to put up with it?
You have to put up with it because basically to change that rule, you would have to go through the process within the SPFL board. So
You would need 12, you need 12 people to vote for it.
All need to change. They all need to change that constitutional rule. And that is one of the major stumbling blocks. When the big clubs don't want to help anybody else, that vote is it's like a dictatorship. You know, all you need is two clubs to say, that's not happening. And that's not the, by the way, don't get me wrong, that is not the key issue that's, you know, deflecting everything here. We are in the middle of a war where one club has made, you know, a call for Rod McKenzie and Neil Doncaster to be suspended pending an investigation. They were not happy with the first apparent independent investigation. Douglas Park has come out and offered to pay for an independent investigation if everybody's worried about the costs. And now people have come out and countered that by saying, well, if he pays for it, it's not exactly going to be independent if he pays for it. So suddenly you're in a situation where the clubs are going to have to pay for the independent investigation if it gets the go-ahead, Alison.
Peter.
There's no doubt about that. Barry?
Peter, see in terms of the independent investigation, I know Douglas Park has come out and says he'll pay it out of his own pocket. Why not just go and have an independent investigation and say to Rangers, when the new season does start back up and running, we will then take the money off the payments that are made to you in that season. So Rangers are not putting any money out, and nearer the SPFL, they'll put it out with the money that Rangers will get, whatever league position they do finish in.
Well, the only thing that I think, and this is why I've said, give Rangers exactly what they're looking for. And I don't say it, I'm not saying give Rangers the independent investigation in any sort of vindictive way, because remember, every word that we utter on here, you have people who come and hit you with a baseball bat who think everybody's got an agenda. We're not dealing with them ever on this programme anymore. What we are going to do is suggest to you, give Rangers the independent investigation, because I think the way the thing's unfolding, Alison, there's a lack of confidence in the board. I can't work out how much that percentage is, but there needs to be now an independent investigation, I think, to clear those two guys' names. If they are guilty of it, any impropriety, then equally their positions will be in jeopardy.
I read through the dossier and Thursday afternoon, I think it was, and I have to say my own conclusion from it was that there were questions to be asked about the governance of the SPFL. I'm not sure it was strong enough to support the allegations of corruption, of bullying that we had seen. But what I would ask is, what's the desired outcome of an independent investigation? What conclusion do people want to come to? That we lance the head of the governing body and start afresh? Rangers obviously have made a case against Rod McKenzie and Neil Doncaster. So, you know, if they want to be proven correct, where do we go after that? Is there a new governing body coming in? What does it all boil down to? Where does it all come to? And where do you go after that? Because that's a big question. And the suspicion I think that many people have is that Rangers have felt very impotent in the whole thing, and that there has been a desire to call it as it stands and award Celtic a 9th successive title. Now, for me, the bigger problems in calling the league as it stands isn't so much about who's awarded titles, but rather at the bottom end, which is what we're seeing just now. This is where all the problems come from, in trying to relegate clubs that I think have a genuine case to say, hang on a minute, we deserve the chance to work our way out of it. I can appreciate all the frustrations. I can appreciate why there have been criticisms, but ultimately, what's the point that you want to get to, and what are the decisions that people want to agree to? Can we get to a point where people are unanimous in agreeing where they want the game to go and how we move on from where we are at the minute?
Well, so many questions there, Ali. I'm not sure. I know Barry thinks he's having trouble, but we can see and hear him clearly. I'm not sure if he's still with us there at the moment, but I think he's frozen. He'll be back with us short. There he's there. Barry, just a quick one there. We thought we'd lost you, and then, of course, we'd have accusations
No,
of
I could
sabotage.
I could hear Alison. I don't think... Peter, can I give you my honest opinion? I don't think it's now about Rangers and the SPFL. I think there's other clubs now involved in that. You can't just say it's Rangers. You see Aberdeen, Cali Thistle, Partick, Stranraer, Falkirk, Stenhouse, Muir. So I don't think we can just put it down as it's Rangers v the SPFL now. I think there's a number of clubs unhappy with the way things are run. And do you know what? Let's go and give everybody the independent investigation, and then see down the line a week, 14 days, then we'll see who's right and who's wrong. That's the only way you're going to sort this.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct on the basis that it's not just about Rangers driving, the steam train here on this one. I think you're right on that, because people are now clearly unhappy with certain things that were put across to them, and some details that they may well have thought they should have been told about. But I think overall, Roughie, the driving force may well have been started by Rangers' unhappiness and displeasure at the way things were conducted. Now what's happening is, I think there's a bit of momentum, as Barry says, where people are obviously sharing their concerns over certain aspects of the way the SPFL have conducted themselves. But the driving force that you can't get away from is Rangers called for the suspension of Neil Doncaster and Rod McKenzie, and over a period of a month said they had a dossier of evidence which would prove impropriety. And that is why the narrative here is always driven and portrayed as Rangers and the SPFL, and more pertinently on this, Rangers and their quest to get evidence that proves sufficiently that Neil Doncaster and Rod McKenzie were guilty of impropriety.
Yeah, I think 100% Rangers were the driving force, and a lot of people wouldn't have liked that. But in the light of what is coming out now, a lot of people are now be saying, well, thank heavens that they've done, somebody's done something, not just Rangers, that we're now beginning to see all these things coming out in the wash. And it won't be a Rangers independent, because if the clubs vote for it, it'll be the clubs, it'll be the member clubs investigation into if they all vote for it. But you're right, no, Rangers can't get away from it. Rangers are the driving force, and then you have to make up your mind where some of the stuff that were coming out with was just Rangers versus the SPFL. But I think we've moved away from that now. I think a lot of people want a lot of answers to a lot of things that have came out in the wash because they've pursued it.
Yeah, William Roberts says all the other teams in the league are ranging at the few. What about highlighting that? Well, that's another issue as well, William. Fiona Docherty says Rangers were right. Well, Fiona, Rangers have yet to be proven right. This has got a few miles to go just yet, and the other clubs are now saying that they are backing Rangers' call for an independent investigation. Whether there are enough of them is open to debate. Barry, do you? Alison posed the question there about what's the ultimate goal? Is the ultimate goal for the head of Neil Doncaster and Rod McKenzie, and then someone else becomes the head of the organisation, or is the ultimate aim for Rangers after that is to clear out the SPFL board and start again? What do you think?
I think first and foremost, the aim, not just the Rangers and all the clubs, is to sort out the mess. Now, if this investigation happens and they're deemed to be doing things wrong in the SPFL, well, they need to move out and somebody else needs to move into their seat. As simple as that, Peter. But the only way you're going to find out if there's an independent investigation allowed. So, as I says, people are going to get proved right and some people are going to get proved wrong. So let's get this done and dusted. Whether it goes through tomorrow, I don't think they'll get the 75% of them, being honest, but I think it'll be a lot closer than first imagined. And then after that, then that's each and every club has their own individual way going forward, whether that's through taking them to court, who knows? But we need to get this sorted, because I keep going back to it. It's an absolute mess. People are looking in at Scottish football and just having a laugh at us, Peter. It's basically just going on and on and on and on. There's bigger issues to sort, because if we don't sort this sooner rather than later, you're going to see a hell of a lot of clubs going out of business, and a lot of football players not having a job. So the quicker we get this investigation, the better.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to resolve itself tomorrow. That's just my opinion on it. I do think you're right. I have certainly, when I was writing the article yesterday, Ali, I think I did mention, although some people clearly can only read certain words, I did write the fact that I think there needs to be a bridge built between Rangers and the SPFL and a number of clubs. I think there needs to be someone from somewhere, a leader to come in and guide the clubs back around a table and start building bridges. Most notably for me with Rangers, whether I or anyone else agrees with how they've gone about their business, whether they're right or wrong, that's to be debated. But I do think we need to try and get a semblance of peace to move forward. But I think if this vote goes against Rangers, Hearts and Stranraer tomorrow, I think we're heading for lots of court cases.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I agree with you. I think that's an ideal concept that you want, is the idea of moving forward and building bridges. I just don't know how idealistic it is and how plausible it is, given just how divisive the last month has been. What I think will be interesting tomorrow is if the Rangers lose the vote, Rangers and Hearts and Stranraer lose the vote, but lose it fairly narrowly. So if you're talking in excess of 50%, but less than the required 75%, I think that still raises a lot of questions. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes then, because you would have more than half of all member clubs expressing some form of dissatisfaction. I think that's very difficult to ignore. Even if on a legal point it doesn't then carry forward, I think it does carry weight if the numbers are as significant as that. I'm not sure they will be. I honestly don't know what the numbers will be, but I think the idea that we could build bridges and get into some kind of peace just seems very distant at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the horizon, as well as this vote, once we get over it, Roughie, is of course the situation where there's still going to be unrest at the Sky deal, the liabilities once the league is called, and once there's a realisation by May 25th that not a ball will be kicked. A number of people have been incensed by the fact that they claim that they were not aware of those liabilities, although I think Neil Doncaster mentioned yesterday that the null and void offered a wider range of liabilities to Scottish football that the SPFL couldn't have indulged in. So that's going to rear its ugly head. Calling the league is going to rear its ugly head as well. And, eventually Celtic to be called champions. This is, and I emphasise this is only what is about to happen. This is not our opinion. These are the facts of what is coming on the horizon, Roughie.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what the timescale will be on that. After last Friday there, it wouldn't surprise me if they just hit everybody with it whenever they feel like it. That came right out of the blue on Friday. We were all led to believe reconstruction was still being talked about, and it never happened, and then it all came out. So yeah, you're right. It was interesting. I think you'll correct me again here. I saw a bit this morning with Neil Donker saying he had contacted the clubs to see about the league being announced, to get their views and how they were thinking. Now, surely that doesn't go to a vote either.
I think right now, because the resolution has already been passed, Roughie, they have a mandate to call the league. This resolution that was passed to call the Championship, League One and League Two, now allows a mandate. Once they confer one, again, like all the leagues across Europe, conferring with UEFA to say, okay, we are now at May, whatever date.
Mm-hmm.
The government has said it's still in lockdown. The medical advice says that we will not be able to play these games by this certain time. Once they provide all that information to UEFA, UEFA will then say, okay, we understand your predicament. The government has given you the guidelines. You can't play the games. We understand why you're calling the league. And Ali, unless you're going to correct me, I think that's exactly how it's going to play out.
Oh, I completely agree. Completely agree. I don't know that it can play out any other way, to be honest.
Well, the funny thing about it, Alison, is suddenly we have Boris Johnson suggesting that, okay, football won't be happening in England up until June 1st, but everybody in England seems to be getting ready to play games behind closed doors. And I think the real incentive to do that in England is because of what's about to happen this weekend in Germany.
Yeah, but if you look at the cost to play games behind closed doors, I still think it would be prohibitive for Scotland. When you look at the amount of money it would cost to test everyone associated with clubs, everyone associated with putting a game on, so you're talking first aid staff, stadium staff, everyone, I just think the costs are prohibitive for that being able to happen here.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct, Roughie. I don't
No.
think we've got the manpower or the money to do what the big five leagues are contemplating. And I must admit, if I'm going to be brutally honest with you, I think they're treading a very dangerous line with this one.
Yeah, I think we've repeated ourselves every week. That it'll be the health association, it'll be the professors, the doctors, the people in the know that will dictate, when we're going to go back to doing anything. I think the only hope we had was pushing the league right back. I don't know how far back, September, October, November, getting these games out the road, keeping everybody happy. But we don't even know if that can happen either. We don't know the time scale of when people can go back into grounds. So that's up in the air as well. So calling it might be the only thing, but so you're telling me it'll be an SPFL call then?
Well, the board will be able to. They'll be able to call it. They've already got the mandate for it, Roughie. The mere fact that the resolution went through.
Yeah. Do you think I'll have a week? Do you think? Yeah. Do you think I'll have a weed in my garden before that announcement comes?
Do you think what?
I'll have a week to build a bunker in my garden so I can hide from the explosion.
Well, that's the other thing. There is a bit of good news. George Mullen has just posted a message on Facebook. George is a regular to the programme and watches it regularly every day. He's just mentioned here a bit of good news, which I think everybody will embrace, especially some of the people that we have from like the likes of Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, Vietnam. George has just announced the car wash is reopened in Shettleston, which I think is a great piece of news there for some people who were slightly worried. All we need to justify now is that our daily exercise goes past that car wash, Barry, in Shettleston.
Well, to be honest with you, it's about 10 miles from me. I don't think I'll be able to get past that. Not fit enough for that.
You're definitely not going past it.
Too much red wine, Peter. I'm afraid. Too much red.
If this drags on much longer, I might be coming for a job in the car wash.
Yeah. Well, Alison, do you want me to tell you something? And this is...
Why does it keep cutting off?
Alison, 100%. I think that's something that I think Roughie is lost on a lot of people. And Alison is clear evidence of what's happening right across the whole of our game. We want to get back to playing football. There's a long time before fans will be in the ground. But by the mere fact that there's no football, we've been lucky enough there, but for the grace of God, we are able to bring this programme daily. But so many people connected with football, their income has stopped. Alison is a freelance reporter. All of the chances to continue to write lots of stories, to go and cover lots of matches, to then subsequently get that income to keep her family going is curtailed. And there's so many people across football have had that hardship, on them right now.
Yeah, you're right. I think people just talk about the football clubs and the players, but everybody that works in the football clubs, people who are football clubs who rely on the income, you're right, the media as well, reporting them games. There are so many people apart from the clubs and the players who are going to come out of this at the wrong end, and that's the unfortunate thing about it. And you feel sorry for them because when you're part of a football club, you know the people behind the scenes, you know what it means to them to turn up on a Saturday, to support the club, and they give everything. and a lot of them do it for nothing. And these are the kind of people who are going to end up losing out of this. These are the kind of people, when the cutbacks come, they're the first ones who are going to get hit, and they're the ones that are going to be out of jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dougie Liddell says he's sorry to hear that, Alison. I think it's a story that's right across football. A lot of good journalists and a lot of good reporters and a lot of people connected with the game, not only from journalism but in the background, right across all the clubs. Who right now are wondering when they're going to be able to get back to being involved in football and being able to get a wage. It will not be the same, Barry. This is another thing that I think a lot of people are missing out on here. This will not be the same in Scottish football when it reopens, whenever that is, because the landscape financially has changed dramatically, not only for the clubs, but for the fans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is, Peter. Just going back on the clubs now, we've had a few emails and a few phone calls with players going about a contract the first week of June. And guys, I wouldn't even considered because of the level they're playing at. Now these guys are willing to go part-time or wherever somebody will offer a contract. So, look, it's worrying times. I worry for I know getting into Alison's job and freelance people, I feel for them, and I feel for all the football players just now as well, Peter, at a lower level who are coming out of contract that have got bills like everybody else. So it's a difficult time for people, and it's a difficult time for football, because I honestly don't think it will be the same, Peter, for a number of years.
Yeah, here's another thing, and I don't want to go back over the headlines. Incidentally, coming up, we have a 1-to-1 with Gothenburg hero Mark McGee talking about that wonderful night in the Ullevi Stadium where Aberdeen defeated Real Madrid. Now, that's just coming up in the next 10 minutes. It's a great interview to listen to Mark talk about Fergie, talk about the sad loss of Neil Cooper, but, of course, speak very fondly of not only Neil, but his teammates and what they achieved and the historical implication to, of course, not only the players, but to Aberdeen as a club. It's a wonderful trip down memory lane with Mark, and as you can see, coming up as well with Mark, I think it's something, Roughie, that you'll be surprised at. People are in lockdown, they're not getting haircuts, and certainly being in isolation has affected them, and you should see Mark McGee. That's all I'm going to say to you. No shaving foam, no razors in a flat. Clearly, I think it's taken its toll on him, to be honest with you. I think you'll be really surprised to see, as they say in Glasgow, the nick of McGee when you see him in the interview. It's, in fact, I would go as far as to say, Barry, I'm not. You're laughing now, son. I think we should get a whip round for him. That's all I'm saying to you, because it's been a really hard paper round when you see him. But it's a great trip down memory lane. Let me tell you, 1983, Aberdeen beating Real Madrid, coming up shortly. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to go back over a couple of things that I think is worthy of your opinion now on what you would like to see coming up. One of the other things that I would say, Alison, and this is not going to be prompted by, I think, the 24 hours now. I think in the summer and possibly just beyond it. I wonder, this is only my personal opinion, I wonder if at the end of this, even if we get a resolution, I wonder if Neil Doncaster will look and say to himself, I've had enough of this, and he might walk away.
That's funny. I had this discussion with someone last night about the possibility of that. I think that just very much comes down to an individual's temperament. I don't know Neil personally at all. I've had very few professional dealings with him. I couldn't cast any light on whether that would be a plausible option for him or not. But I think when you see the pantomime that's gone on over the last few months, I think it has to be a viable option for him.
Yeah, it would be.
Surely. I'm just going to tell. I was waiting till you speaking there. Surely he must be on a contract as well, Peter. Surely he must have a contract, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. Maybe it's going to run out.
Yeah.
Maybe it is running out. And Alison might be right. It depends. These kind of people do move on. They move on and pick up other jobs along the line. I don't think there's any way back for him now. I think there's so much trust being lost by a lot of powerful people. And when you see the people who are now going to vote for an independent review, I think that will be an indication of if he can build bridges. And at this moment in time, I don't think he can.
What do you mean there's no way back?
For him, just like Alison's saying, I think that there's enough people, maybe not 75, but enough people to go to an independent. I don't think he'll want that on his CV. I don't think he would like it on his CV that he was taken and things come out in the wash. So I think I agree with Alison. I think he might get some kind of deal and move on. It's not the first time we've lost a chief executive, so that might be an avenue for him.
Yeah, that's a different argument from the one I started with, Barry, which was basically, I think, you know, depending on whether there's some kind of resolution to this and his name, you know, at this moment, and I can only give you the facts on this, he's had, in his mind, an accusation which was defamatory and also a threat. But overall, he has maintained that his role and Rod Mackenzie's role has been, you know, beyond reproach. They may well have made, you could call it a mistake in communications of certain details, but they certainly in their mind have not broken any of the rules within the Scottish SPFL's constitution. So there's a difference here between what Roughie's saying, that they might think there's no way back because there's enough of a groundswell of people who don't want him there. That's a different issue.
Yeah, my thoughts, Peter, on it is I think once we see light at the end of the tunnel after all this arguing or bickering, whatever you want to call it's went on, and football's about to get back played, I think you might see him resigning and just walk away and say, I've had enough. That's my thoughts. I think there's too many bridges burnt now. I think there's too many disagreements going on. I think he'll just wait till we're virtually back playing football. He's come up with decisions, he's answered them or whatever, and I think he'll just say, right, that's me, pack my bags and away he goes to whatever he goes and does in the future. That's what I think might happen.
Before we go to the Mark McGee interview, I think it's only right and proper I get your thoughts on what you think's going to happen moving forward. As far as the vote's concerned, Roughie, we as pundits on this programme can only offer our opinion on it. I don't think they'll get the sufficient vote for the independent investigation. That will open another can of worms and we will just go into all-out court action. That's my opinion on it now. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they're given the vote that they need, the three clubs, that then, with the backing of certain other clubs, the independent investigation looks into the whole matter and determines definitively whether there was impropriety or not.
Yeah. As I said at the beginning of the show, Peter, I don't think the top league will help this at all. All it needs is four of them to just vote for, not against it, and that's it, scuppered. It doesn't matter what everybody else does, but I believe if it's over 50%, something should be done. It just shows that the majority of the clubs who run Scottish football do not like what they've been reading and what they've been hearing, so they want something to come out of it, and I think that would be the same for me. The only worry thing for me, I think you would agree with me, if the SPFL board don't get the 75, if they don't get the 75%, they'll just say game finished. Let's just carry on. Let's just go back to what we're doing. They will just throw it right under and dismiss the whole thing. It didn't get 75%, and I always said I don't think 75% is a just percentage to take this anywhere.
Alison?
I don't think they'll get the required numbers to take it through, and like you, I think it gives rise to a different second wave of what we've been talking about. I think you'll get the second wave that comes after that. I think you'll see legal action being threatened, whether or not it will be executed. I definitely think that will be the next stage of the narrative.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Roughie, you reckon that there is indeed going to be, as Barry's mentioned for Kelty, you reckon that Partick Thistle now are of a mind to actually look at legal recourse?
I don't want to go into down the legal side of it. There's so many legal routes you can down. I think they're thinking about going down the route of, is it corporate law or something like that? Something that has a loss of earning, loss of income to people associated with the club, that kind of thing. I don't know if Thistle would go it alone. I think it's, as we've already discussed, it's an awful lot of money. There's people going to be losing jobs just now. Do you want to be spending 200,000 chasing it against, the people who are worthy of being at the club, and you're not telling them, look, we can't afford it because we're going on a legal case? That would be the stumbling block, I think, for our club.
Barry, Peter, can I just... we are, as I said, we are not decided that we're going down the legal route, but they're obviously talking to lawyers and seeing, because as you rightly know, the cost could be a crazy amount, which would have been possible for Kelty to afford. So we're just getting advice from different people. That's what the general manager's doing just now. And then after he gathers that advice, then they'll need to sit, they'll need to chat on the phone with each board member and decide which way they want to go. So it'll probably come down to cost, Peter. That's what it will come down
and
to.
The last point before we talk about something really, really good, which is, of course, Aberdeen winning the Cup Winners' Cup in '83. I would like to offer this to you of what I'd like to see happen. If anybody in the Premier League clubs even somehow stumbles across this little bit of the show, I would implore each and every one of you to perform a U-turn and help the clubs and vote for reconstruction and move it along. There's no shame in doing a U-turn. I would look to save the clubs, save Hearts, save Partick Thistle, save Stranraer, bring Kelty and Brora into this league. That's what I would implore you to do. Help everyone in their hour of need. And then from somewhere, if there is an individual out there who can somehow bring us all back together and make sure that Rangers do not feel they're on a lone crusade. They've made, and I think raised, some very valid points in their questions about the SPFL. I think we have a duty to try and bring everybody back together. I don't know if I'm looking for utopia, Alison, but I would like to see that.
I think it's what we would all like to see. I just don't know how possible it is at the minute. I don't know where the leadership comes from, and I don't know where the olive branch comes from, unless it's reconstruction, but I just don't see that coming back to the fore. I really don't.
Yeah. Can I just add, Peter, when you're voting tomorrow, yes is yes and no is no. So make sure you get it in time. Yeah.
To Roughie. And I did.
Peter, can I?
Yeah.
I think I honestly believe it will be a lot closer than what I first imagined last week. I do think over the weekend people may change their view, but I'll be honest with you, I'm with you, I don't think it will go past at 75%. But I do believe then they've got decisions to make, and that could be go down the legal route, which if they firmly believe they've got something, they'll do it.
Yeah, and I'm going to highlight this one little message that's come in, if only for, and I said I wouldn't do it, but I've just got to, just out of the reasons of sensibility. Sandy Malone says, it's a different story now from Peter. Only last week he tore into Rangers discrediting the dossier. He's a two-faced, contradicting man. Sandy, you're a sad individual. I've stuck to exactly what I've said on it. The dossier did not prove impropriety in any shape or form. I do hope at this point, when there is a call for Neil Doncaster and Rod McKenzie to face an investigation, I do hope Rangers get that. They raised some good points, but they went about it the wrong way, Sandy. So you really need to listen to this programme in its entirety. And if you can read, I would implore you to read the article that we've written on PLZ Soccer on it as well, because that is what it's all about. It's a football show We give you the opinion. We don't change our opinion unless, of course, something comes to light that we did not know about. But we try and give you, as best we can, our opinion as a football show. And with that in mind, I always like to say this: if you don't like the opinion because you think there's an agenda or you just want to hear your club's flag waving, then this show is not for you. It's a football show. There are others which will satisfy you. Gothenburg, 1983, Roughie. It's hard to believe it. 37 years ago, we had actually clubs who didn't wear green or indeed blue that won the league and actually had success in Europe. It's hard to believe it. Aberdeen, all those years ago, managed to break the Old Firm stranglehold and dance across Europe and win the Cup Winners' Cup.
Yeah, it was absolutely mind-blowing. But for me, Peter, the semi-final was as big as the final. To beat Bayern in the semi-final was an unbelievable achievement. And then to go into the final and win it, obviously I know most of the players. It was my era when they were playing there. Great bunch of guys, you know, all fighting for each other. And it just shows you, you know, when you get that, they don't have to be, you know, world-class players, just really, really, really good international club players, and that's where they got their success from. It was a tremendous night to see it.
Yeah, Barry,
Peter,
have a look at this
what was
team.
the team? I was just about to ask, what was the team on the night? Great.
I knew you were going to say that.
There you go.
Leighton, Roughie, McLeish, Miller, McMaster, Strachan, Cooper, Simpson, Weir, Black, McGee, Hewitt come on as a sub. Stuart Kennedy was injured, but Fergie put him on the bench anyway. And would you believe he never kicked a ball against Stuart Kennedy? He was a fabulous right back. But that was some team, Fergie.
I know a lot of names that I know. Actually, Eric Black, when I retired, Peter, when I took over at Blackpool the last 3 months, I brought Eric Black in to be a shoulder to cry on, basically, because I had him at under 21s, and fantastic coach. And I remember back in the day, he was a fantastic player, but obviously had to retire early. I think it was a back injury, if I'm right.
Yeah, you're 100%
he was
right.
great in the air. Yeah, he was great in the air, and it would have been great to see how far he could have went, obviously with injury. But see, as a coach, Peter, one of the best I've had. He was great on the training ground. Great when I had him, as I said, with Scotland, and I learned in that short 3 months. I learned so much off him.
Yeah, it's a nice compliment you pay him. I thought he was going to go on to become an absolute superstar, Ali. But as Barry mentioned there, that back injury done him in. He was on our programme and he was just a joy. The amount of managers that want him as an assistant was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I crossed paths very briefly with him for a short time when he was at Celtic as a coach. But when you look at that team, the thing that really strikes you is the amount of leaders that were on the pitch that night. When you look at the characters that were there, and you consider the alchemy then that you have when you have a very strong manager too, and you combine that with the talent that you've got on the pitch, it's a remarkable story. It is, and I think it's right that we should celebrate it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Derek Duncan says, what about Dundee United, Peter? European Cup semi-final and the UEFA Cup final. Derek, you're absolutely right about Dundee United as well. And I would say to you, but for a dodgy referee who decided to take a few backhanders, Dundee United would have played Liverpool in the 1984 European Cup final instead of Roma. And that's a fact. We've managed to get those facts over the years. It took a few years, but we got them. Just in case anybody's forgotten about how it all transpired, here's what happened with the Gothenburg Greats.
On this day, 37 years ago, Aberdeen defeated Real Madrid to lift the 1983 European Cup Winners' Cup. The Dons, led by a young Alex Ferguson, were at the peak of their powers, having won the league 3 years previously and the 1982 Scottish Cup, a feat they would repeat 10 days later. Aberdeen had beaten Lech Poznan of Poland and Waterschei Tor of Belgium in their route to the final, as well as the much-fancied German giants Bayern Munich. Real Madrid, six-time European champions, were managed by the great Alfredo Di Stefano and had beaten Inter Milan on their run to the final. On a rainy night in Gothenburg, Aberdeen enjoyed their finest hour in front of 15,000 loyal supporters as they outplayed their Spanish opponents. Striker Eric Black gave the Dons an early lead that only lasted 7 minutes, and it stayed level until substitute John Hewitt's header in extra time, which won Aberdeen the cup and made them the Gothenburg greats.
Yeah, the Gothenburg greats were only... it was a fantastic goal, wasn't it? John Hewitt crossed by Mark McGee, no less.
Yeah, it was a diving header, was it not? Was it a diving header?
Yes. Yep.
Yep, I remember it. Can I ask you a question just quickly? Doug Roughie, was he hard as nails?
Yes. I think Dougie was hard. He was harder than nails, Barry. To be honest with you, I think you're doing a disservice to Doug Roughie suggesting he was hard as nails. Davy Provan used to say a wonderful thing to me. He said when he went up there as a Celtic player, as everybody used to go and warm up, Davy went over to the gravel ash on the side that he was playing on to see how thick it was, because he knew within one tackle Doug Roughie would have planted him right over the edge of the touchline and he'd be on that gravel. So he was checking out how badly his thigh was going to be skinned by the end of it. Dougie was a hard player, but of course a good player as well. Went on to play for Chelsea, no less. But they were a great bunch of guys. And Roughie, Eric Black, we've already said, great player, scored the first goal. Big Eck with a back pass that left his goalkeeper wanting. Juanito was fouled. Santiana scored the equaliser before. In the 112th minute, Roughie, John Hewitt popped up on the end of Mark McGee's cross to head the ball into the net and win the cup.
Yeah, I think we had Mark on. I think Mark was saying that in the later stages of the game, obviously the weather turned pretty poor and they handled the conditions much, much better than Real Madrid. But let's not take anything away from them. It was a tremendous effort on the night, and I think at the end of the day they loved it. You're right, I remember as clear as then, Bart going down the wing. It was a sort of a John Robertson crossover, you know. I think John Hewitt didn't even have to break stride. You know, he just right on his head and into the net, and what a time again to score the winning goal in a cup final.
Yeah, and let's not forget Aberdeen went on to defeat Hamburg in the European Super Cup as well. They were that good a side. So, if you want to at this point, like, share and follow our Facebook page. We really do appreciate it. That's if you like football and you're passionate about your sport and your team. We'd love to have you. As ever, a big goodbye to all the nutcases who've just posted abuse on the channel for the last hour and a half. And also to YouTube as well. Don't forget. I have to listen. It's in my makeup, Barry. I've got to leather them. I can't resist it.
See it coming. I know.
Off, absolutely.
He says it,
you know, you've got to do it.
He says at the start of the programme, listen, I'm not going to say it about them. You can't help yourself.
I can't help myself. Do you know why? I'm flying the flag, Alison, for the majority of decent people who love their team. You know, and obviously, some people have mentioned, do you know the crazy thing about this? Some people have texted me and said, critical of the fact that we haven't mentioned Celtic. I don't think we've mentioned Celtic on this show for about 2 weeks because everybody else is fighting. I'm sure we'll get round to them at some point, but they're certainly not involved in this battle. So if you're on YouTube, then by all means do subscribe to our channel and you'll get all sorts of different guests, the pundits who give it to you as straight as they possibly can. Have a look and have a listen now to a man who obviously scored in the Super Cup final for Aberdeen, but created the goal for John Hewitt to score. I can tell you right now, and don't get frightened by this, you know, I think the passage of time has been very, very unkind to him as he's been in lockdown. But he's looking back on Gothenburg for us, the wonderful Gothenburg great, Mark McGee. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Gothenburg hero Mark McGee. As you can tell, lockdown affects people in many different ways. Some of us have access to shaving equipment. Some people just want to go with the flow. Mark, you've just decided to adopt that Roy Wood look from the 1970s.
Yeah, well, Peter, I've been in lockdown a bit longer than just the 7 weeks. You know, since Gordon and I left Scotland, you know, we're not really had a lot to do. So we've kind of hung about the house a wee bit. You know? So, here we are. That's where it's led.
It's a fantastic look, I have to tell you. I'm absolutely...
We got
I'm delighted.
Actually, don't look that different. We got it for a Halloween party at Mar Hall. It was a lovely party we went to, and I went as a sort of wizard, as you could guess.
Where did Gordon goes?
Gordon went as Yoda. Him and Leslie went as Princess Leia and Yoda. He was very convincing. He had his mask on, but everybody was able to guess who it was for some reason. I don't know.
Listen, it's great to chat to you on such a day like today because, boy, 37 years has passed since you lifted the Cup Winners' Cup. It's incredible, isn't it?
I mean, I should have hair like that, really. 37 years. It's unbelievable. It's a lifetime in football, of course. It's incredible. 37 years. And maybe even more incredible, Peter, is that I don't think any of us on that day would have realised that 37 years later we'd still be sitting talking about it and people would be even interested, So it's a fantastic thing, really.
Yeah, I mean, strangely enough, when you look at, Billy McNeill and the Lisbon Lions, you look at the Barca Bears from 1972, to reach the mountaintop and then to eventually win the game, you don't really get a grasp of how it can change your life dramatically and the affection and love from fans about what you achieved.
And that's that thin line. The thin line of winning and losing. I spoke about this earlier in the week about another competition that I've had great memories in, and that was the Scottish Cup. And I'm absolutely honoured, if you like, to have played in 5 finals and to have won 5. And if I'm not wrong, a great Scottish player and a great team at the time. Paul Hegarty. I think that Paul played in 5 as well and lost 5. And they certainly didn't deserve to lose 5, and certainly Paul Hegarty didn't deserve to win a cup. Given the career he had, he made outside of the 5 that they lost. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I mean. It's thin lines, and here we are. Having beaten Real Madrid, we'll still remember it. Had we not beat them, then some people might have remembered it.
Yeah, but when I look at the two sides, I mean, the run to it was special as well because everybody talks about defeating Bayern Munich at Pittodrie, which was an unbelievable night. But to come up against a Real Madrid side, I mean, I noted down some of their special players. Johnny Metcalf, Camacho, Stilica, Juanito, Santillana. This wasn't a side without the usual Real Madrid quality. They were top drawer.
And and I'm sure you'll ask me about it eventually in this discussion, but I think that one of the real master strokes, the real pieces of genius that the manager deployed in the run up to that game and everyone was to somehow suppress the kind of hype around Real Madrid. He told us not to read the papers. He persuaded everybody around us not to be shown us stuff that was being said in the papers. And that's not because of a reflection on anything bad, just the fact that we might have become too overawed by the fact it was Real Madrid. Instead of that, we arrived at the game really almost oblivious to who they were and the stature of them, and that was a masterstroke.
Yeah, I mean, the pitch was just the worst possible. Did it benefit you guys more than it, did it hamper them more? What way would you look at that pitch just absolutely soaked?
I think that when the going get really tough, later in the game, and once they had realised that they were in a game, I don't know what they came expecting. I don't mean that they were casual or complacent or anything like that at the start of the game, but I think they soon realised they were going to have to earn anything they got that night. And I think when it came down to it, I think it probably affected them more, not benefited us, but maybe affected them a little bit more than it did us, because we just plowed on through it.
Yeah, and I talked about special players within the Real Madrid side. For me personally, growing up as a boy and looking at this Aberdeen side that managed to break the old firm stranglehold, it was rich in players who had that winning mentality. Jim Leighton, great goalkeeper, Roughie in there, Miller, McLeish, you've got Strachan and Weir, you've got Simpson and Cooper, you've got yourself and Eric Black and John McMaster, let's not forget Doug Roughie. I mean, it's just an unbelievable team.
Yeah, and missing from that, of course, there was the likes of Stuart Kennedy, who got injured, and there was a decent squad, outside of the 11 that took the field. Um, yeah, I mean, it had a great mixture, a great balance of sort of mind and matter, sort of thing, if you like. We had muscle and we had mentality. We had a mixture of everything. We had ability, and we had physical strength, and we had, as you say, we had players that were single-minded. That could be nasty. If you played us, you knew you were in a game.
Yeah, and just with that in mind, I mean, let's talk about the quality. The first goal, was it practice? Was it something from training?
Yeah, well, I think that there wasn't much really that wasn't practiced, and there wasn't much that it didn't come from training. I mean, I think we were very well prepared for any game, but we were better prepared, obviously, for that game than we'd ever been for any other game. And everything was drilled into us. And of course, one of the manager's favourite sort of mentors, if you like, was Bill Shankly, and we used to listen to the Bill Shankly tapes, and Bill Shankly used to talk about improvisation. So it wasn't that the manager didn't allow improvisation, because he knew that it was and is today something that can make the difference between good teams and great teams. The player that can improvise something that can get you out of a corner. And as much as a lot was drilled into us, there was a lot down to like Peter Weir, Gordon Strachan, and these guys who could improvise.
Yeah, the corner was magnificent, the header, but the guy who pounced on the goal, Eric Black, I thought he was a really special player and could have had a longer career with even more honours had it not been for that back injury, which is annoyed the life out of him.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about that. I've ever, I've played with a few players that you thought, and I've seen a few players that you thought if that hadn't happened, um, I was asked yesterday to pick the best team I've ever, played with, and I didn't put Eric in it. And I didn't put Eric in it because of that, really. I played with Steve Archibald and McAvenny and Mo Johnston and Peter With and Alan McInally and Brian McClare and others, And, there's no doubt about it. If Eric hadn't had those injuries, he would have went on to somewhere as Gordon did, as I did, went on somewhere else and grown his career, and he would have been in that team that I picked yesterday. There's no doubt about it. He had fantastic ability.
Before we talk about that extra time winner and your part in it, let's talk about the manager. Everybody knows how special he was. Did he deliver something of a speech at the start, or was there some message that he got across to everyone that will live with you, or was he just his usual meticulous self?
I think it wasn't just a sort of a sort of big speech 5 minutes before we went out. From the day that we knew we were playing Real Madrid in the final, he started preparations then. Things things that I don't know if you get away with them today. For instance, he had all the wives into Pataudry, and he told all the wives that they weren't to give us any aggravation or any hassle, that this was, sorry, my battery's when it's going, that they weren't to give them any aggravation, that this was the most important day of their lives. And you can imagine how Claire Miller and Jacqueline McGee and all the girls and, and Jill McLeish and all the girls took to that, of course, but we milked it, of course, we are together. Very important. The manager said it, we have to go to bed every afternoon. Keep the children away from us, take the children out there. But, everything, nothing was left to chance. Nothing was left to chance, So as much as we were the small guys from a provincial town in Scotland, we were as well prepared, I bet you, as Real Madrid were.
There's a good few of that side that I've absolutely been honoured to be in their company. Some of them have made friends along the way, but Alex McLeish's back pass, that team had some of the best wind-up merchants I have ever met in my life. Did you give them pelters for the back pass that gave them the penalty?
Well, funny enough, not only did they give him belters, of course we did, but this morning Big Alec phoned me just 20 minutes ago, and we were talking about having watched the game when it was the 20th anniversary, I think it was, up in a big rally up in Aberdeen at the conference centre, and I hadn't seen the game for obviously probably 19 years, and one of the first things that struck me was when the ball was back past to Big Jim, he picked it up. And of course, that rule change, had kind of become standard, and you kind of forget what it was like. So I said to Alec this morning, I said, I said, it's amazing when you've seen back passes, and Big Jim picked it up. But he didn't bite, he didn't bite, he just changed the subject, so I'm sure he still feels it.
It's late on. The perfect time to score a winner is when they've got nothing left in the tank. Peter Weir was a wonderful player, but the ball to you, and then what was going through your head as you picked her up on the left-hand side?
Well, firstly, it was the perfect time to score a goal because we had nothing left. No, we had nothing left. I had nothing left in the tank, so had we not scored the winner, I would have just prayed that it went to penalties, I suppose, I don't think we even had the strength for a fight, it would have had to be penalties. So when Peter played me in, the boy that had come on at right back, the sub was the right back by that time. So you'd expect him to be a bit fresher, so I was a bit surprised when I was able to run past him. But I just, to this day, I can remember, because I wasn't great on my left side here, I don't have any problems admitting that. I kind of tended to be pretty one-sided and score a lot of goals with my left foot. I scored most of my goals with my right foot on my head. My left foot wasn't great. And therefore, I could feel the breath of the man on my neck as I, got there and got the ball in a position where I might be able to cross it. And all I could think, and I remember it, I can remember my mind, what my mind's thoughts were, and it was only get it off the ground. It's a bit like, playing your golf shot, you think, get it in the air, and that's all I concentrated on. I didn't really think about picking out John Hewitt or the distance that I had to go. I just knew that I had to get it off the ground. Because of the wet, as well, I knew that if I didn't get it off the ground, it wasn't making it, So I just put all my effort and I just launched my whole body into my left foot and somehow managed to get the ball off the ground. And of course, Johnny was on the end of it.
It would be remiss of me not to mention, getting that crew together. You've got a special bond, but Tatty, Neil Cooper not being there is, I think, a huge loss for everyone. He was not only a good player in the team, but he loved to wind up as well. His patter was great.
He was the kid, of course. He was the youngest in the squad, and he was the one that got away with murder. With the manager, he got away with things that none of the rest of us could possibly have imagined getting away with. The manager loved him. The manager absolutely loved him. He was like a substitute father for him. He was his golden boy. And of course he was to the rest of us the young player. But he was, as you know, he was an absolute practical joker. He never stopped laughing, He can remember him coming on the bus. I always remember it. And he'd come up the stairs, because we would sometimes sit near the front, and he'd come up the stairs and he'd look at you and just burst out laughing. And you'd say, "Ty, what the hell are you laughing at?" And he'd be like, "Oh no, just laughing." He'd just be like, he was just full of it. He was just full of it. He was just an exceptionally positive character, and he was, and he was a great player. He was an animal, but he had legs and he had aggression and he had patter. He had it all. He was a fantastic, and of course we all miss him. Yeah.
Finally, everybody looks back at the memorabilia. Are you a nostalgic person? Have you got the strip framed? Have you got the medal? Do you ever look at it?
I've got the medal in a safe somewhere, but I no longer have the strip. One of the strips I gave, we got we were given 2 strips, one which you were allowed to swap with Real Madrid, and I didn't because I was late into the dressing room, and by the time I get in, Real Madrid had gone away with their tail between their legs, and I was left with 2 strips, 2 Aberdeen strips, one I wore and the one that was the duplicate in case it got damaged or something. And a friend of mine worked for the Quarriers Homes, did a lot of good stuff for the Quarriers Homes, and a lot of years ago I gave it to him, one of them, to auction. And I remember being worried that if it didn't get very much, I thought, that's a shame because it's such a valuable thing to me. And at the time, I think it got something like £2,000, which you could have probably got me for that, never mind the strip, at that time, given the transfer fees in those days. So it was a magnificent sum at the time, and it was for Quarriers Home, so that went well. The other one was around, and then I had a suitcase full of memorabilia, strips, tops, in between moving house at one time, and the suitcase went missing. And there was a load of strips and a load of, well, not that many hat-trick balls, but a few hat-trick balls and stuff like that in the case. Not the medals, of course, but a lot of stuff went missing. That's where the second strip went out. It was stolen.
God, I would love to find that case somewhere, by the way. That would be absolutely unbelievable. When I think of your career and the games that you've played in.
Well, don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a special memory. I think something you should be tremendously proud of. I'm so happy that you gave us the time to have a chat, and I know all those boys mean so much to you. The bond will never be broken. Mark McGee, all I would say to you is thank you for joining me on this very special day, remembering the Cup Winners' Cup final in Gothenburg.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks for remembering us, of course. We all appreciate it. We all value it.
Magic stuff there from Mark McGee. That is absolutely incredible. Looking back in the memories, hard to believe. 37 years ago, the Gothenburg greats, Aberdeen defeating Real Madrid. And of course, I can remember Jock Stein was actually on a panel and he said he thought Aberdeen would win that day. They weren't playing the mighty Real Madrid with the name. They were playing against 11 players on the park, and Fergie's boys went out there and got the win that they craved. They were a magnificent side, and as so many of our other followers mentioned, Dundee United had a great side too. Oh, how we'd love all those European great nights to return. Oh, how we'd love domestic football to return. As ever, if you've enjoyed the content, don't forget you can like, share and follow us on our Facebook page, where you not only get daily updates on what's happening in the madness of Scottish football, you'll get English news and you get world football news as well. It's all on our website. You can download our app. You'll get regular podcasts, special guests, unique video content. And if you're on our YouTube channel as well, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see so much more. If you love football, if you're passionate about your club, and if indeed you can look at things objectively, then we'd love you to stick with us. To everyone, please follow the government advice, stay safe, stay indoors, and make sure we get out of this together fit and healthy. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all again. This time on the Tuesday we'll have Darren Jackson and Hugh McDonald joining myself and Alan Rough, 4 p.m. on Facebook and live on YouTube at 4 p.m. as well. Thank you very much for watching us today.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.